Hey guys, hope your day is going great so far. Here in today's video, we're going to talk a little bit about cord cutting. So depending on who you're talking to, cord cutting can mean different things. For the sake of this video, I'm going to go ahead and just assume that cord cutting means that we're going to go ahead and cancel any subscription for pay TV. That could be Dish Network, that could be DirecTV. There's multiple different services out there that you can technically cut the cord on. Now, what I don't like about the term cord cutting I get it, cord cutting is essentially cutting a coaxial cable, to be technical, but either way, either you've got a Wi-Fi or you've got some sort of internet connection that's supplying the service. So really, cord cutting probably isn't the best term, so that's where kind of the confusion comes in, but I won't go into detail on that today. As of very recently here, my wife and I, we just recently cut our service to DirecTV. Not that there's anything wrong with DirecTV. We just wanted to explore the avenue of the cord cutting world, as well as, to be completely honest, some of these cable providers, not just DirecTV, have the tendency of kind of overcharging. They get you in at the beginning at a low price, but then over time, things kind of escalate. And So today I want to talk a little bit about different alternatives on what you can do to get TV in replace of a pay-for-TV service. Now, there are all sorts of different services out there, Sling TV, PlayStation Vue, and actually DirecTV recently released what's called DirecTV Now. It's similar to what they're used to have, except you don't need the satellite dish. It's all streaming. So regardless of which service you choose, there's lots of good ones out there, but for today's video, I want to talk about how we can get our local channels. As you may be aware of, one of the downfalls of these streaming services is that you can't get your local channels in, at least not as of January 2017. So probably your most popular way of going ahead and getting those local channel is by using an over-the-air antenna. Now, there are multiple variations of this. There's ones that actually are indoor as well as outdoor. I actually happen to have one of each, an indoor and an outdoor antenna here that I'm going to be experimenting with. Now, so previously I went ahead and purchased an indoor antenna. Back in the day they used to be rabbit ears, but now they are this flat pad here, and they're pretty discreet. And this one actually allows you to paint over it, so it will blend in with the wall, so to speak. So there's a lot of different options there. Very affordable. They don't take up as much room, I don't think, as the bunny ears did. But you still have that downfall of having something either on the wall, on the window, or something exposed, so it's not as pretty, so to speak. So I went ahead and I've been using this here on my main TV. It works great. I'll go ahead and link this up in the description below. I got it on Amazon, like I said, there's multiple different variations that you can buy. I'm sure they're all good, but this brand here, this 1x1, is very good. I definitely recommend it if you are in the market for it. Just like there are a lot of different options for indoor antennas, there's also a lot for outside. Now, so I went ahead and picked up one from that same brand, 1x1. This is going to be an external antenna that's going to be outside. You can have it on your roof or in your attic space. So this one here it actually costs about the same price as the one that you hang on the wall. But the plus side is if you have multiple TVs, you're going to be splitting that signal, so you shouldn't have to have multiple indoor antennas. Is ultimately the goal there. So yeah, this is going to be the one that I'm going to be using. So a couple things to keep in mind is there are two primary signals when you're dealing with these antennas, and so you've got the VHF and UHF, and all that is just a different frequency. But typically your lower channels, I believe, are VHF, and your higher are the UHF. Excuse me. But you can definitely do some research on that. So just keep that in mind when you're picking out an antenna, because sometimes the antenna will only be one or the other. So my biggest complaint with these indoor antennas is that you have something hanging up on the wall, and it can look a little tacky. Maybe over time, as cord cutting becomes more normal, it might not be as big of a deal. But either way, my preference is not to see it at all. So that's where I wanted to go down the avenue of possibly using the existing DirecTV infrastructure that was put in the house, to go ahead and utilize an outdoor antenna. One of the benefits if you've had a satellite TV provider is that you have a dish up on your roof, as well as all of the wiring should be set up already to each of your rooms. If you do a quick inventory around your house, you'll probably find some coaxial ports on your wall, and this is probably what your satellite provider was initially hooked up to. I'm hoping I'm going to be able to pull down a satellite dish off my roof here, but yet utilize the coaxial cable that's already ran up there. So ideally, I'll be able to plug the TV directly into the wall and still get my local channels. If this is possible, what that's going to do is that's that's going to alleviate me from having to A, buy multiple of these indoor antennas, and B, it gets that off the wall, so it helps clean things up, and that's ultimately what I'm going for. Like I mentioned earlier, I'm not 100% sure that this is going to work. However, the research I've done, as well as just the logic behind it, I think it should be feasible. So with that being said, I'm going to stop talking and let's go ahead into the actual preparation.
So one of the things you're going to want to do before you even get up on the roof is you're going to want to find where your local towers are. So I recommend going out to nocable.org to kind of have a nice little user interface here where you can type in your location, and it'll tell you where where the towers are, how far they are, and what direction they are. So it's definitely helpful, so that way you know which way to point that antenna, as well as know which kind of antenna you need by the mileage away from that. So definitely recommend doing this step. Now you're ready to get up on the roof. So you can see here my satellite dish show where the coaxial cable is running. It starts from the top of this arm here, and then it's going to go down through this pole, and then around onto this gutter here, and then down to the side of the house. Then from the side of the house, you can kind of see how it's kind of tucked away behind the siding there. And then that's going to ultimately lead down to the basement.
So then from the outside, we come into the basement here, and you can see the lines being fed down here, which ultimately ends up here into the splitter that DirecTV provided. And so here's the main feed coming into the end, and then we get split out to the living room and each of the bedrooms there. So my main idea here is I'm gonna bring this the main input into the amplifier, and then plug that back into the splitter, which will ultimately split the signal to each of the bedrooms, and so giving us that flexibility of not having to have multiple indoor antennas per TV.
All right, let's go ahead and put this antenna together. So I'm gonna go ahead and pull everything out of the box. So what you can see here, we don't have a whole lot of stuff here, so that's pretty nice about this. Shouldn't be too much to assemble. So what looks like here, this is going to be our amplifier. And what this is going to do is it's going to help boost the signal. My understanding is that you don't necessarily need that, but if you have the option to, definitely go ahead and use that. It doesn't hurt any. Looks like we got a little extra coax cable here, and then of course the main unit. Looks like we just spread everything apart. And what's nice about this particular unit here is we've got this adjustable bracket here. So what this allows us for is to have different size poles here. So I mean, depending on how thick that DirecTV post is up there, it shouldn't be a problem because we can adjust that accordingly. And then of course on the underside here, this is where the coaxial cable will connect once we get up onto the roof. So then what our next steps are going to be is we're going to go ahead and go downstairs, and we're going to go ahead and plug in the amplifier. So what we're going to do before we actually take down the satellite dish is I'm going to unhook the coaxial cable from the dish up there, but I'm going to leave the dish attached just in case this doesn't work. Then my reassembly isn't too tedious there. So with that being said, let's go down to the basement and let's hook up this amplifier. Alrighty, so now I'm down in the basement again. You have to forgive my mess here. But anyways, so I went ahead and I plugged in the amplifier here into this outlet. And then there's gonna be two different ports here on this amplifier. We have an in as well as a TV. And what the in is gonna be is, like I mentioned earlier, coming from the satellite dish down is what we're gonna go ahead and plug that into. Then we're gonna use the extra coaxial cable that came with the unit to go from the TV back to the splitter. And hopefully the signal will be able to pass through, go down to the splitter, and go out to the living room and the bedrooms. At least that's the hope anyways. So let's go ahead and get that assembled. Okay, so I'm gonna go ahead and hook up the TV portion first. Okay, so we got that in there. That all looks good. So then we're gonna come here to the original splitter. Okay, so this is gonna be our in. And we're gonna go ahead and plug this into the in. So you can see here, we got the cable coming from the roof into the in, and then we've got it split out here from the TV, which will come back to the splitter. So let's go ahead and attach that portion as well. Okay, So we've got that new coaxial here coming in to the in portion here on the splitter, and yeah, hopefully that will solve that. So yeah, let's go on up to the roof. So like I mentioned here, here's the coax cable we're going to be working with. As you can see, it's zip tied here, and I'm going to go ahead and just cut this top zip tie. What that's going to do is going to give me a little bit more slack here when I unhook it from the main arm. Go ahead and remove the zip tie there, and then we're going to go ahead and loosen this up a little bit to give us a little slack. Now here on the front side there's a little lever here that holds the eye of the satellite there. Go ahead and release that, and then that should just slide out. You might have to wiggle a little bit, but once you get that off there, then you'll be able to unhook the coaxial cable. Now that we have that unhooked, now you can go ahead and secure the antenna to this. And all we're going to do is we're just going to kind of hold it in place here so it doesn't fall off. We're going to do a quick test. All right, guys, we're back inside now. Went ahead and hooked up the TV to the coaxial port that sits behind the TV. So I'm no longer using the indoor antenna. I'm using the one that's up on the roof that's kind of temporarily stabled there. I just want to make sure that this works before I get too carried away with, taking down the whole satellite dish. So yeah, so without further ado, let's go ahead and see if this works. Go ahead and change it to the cable port. Excellent. That's exactly what we want to see. Let's check a couple other channels here. Great. Awesome. Fantastic. So yeah, I think everything is working great here. All right, so now let's go ahead and go back up to the roof and let's start taking down that satellite dish. Just wanted to do a quick check to make sure that the bedroom TV was working here too, and yeah, it looks great. So I think we're ready to roll. I went ahead and unhooked the antenna. Now I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and pull this coaxial out through this arm here. So hopefully the idea is to be able to loosen up these bolts right here, and hopefully this whole top thing will just pop right up. But might have to do a little playing around with it. Yeah, let's go ahead and get that coaxial cable out of it. All right, looks like we got about a 1/2-inch socket here we're using. And the idea is to go ahead and hook that antenna up to this post here. Don't have to worry about drilling holes inside the house or anything. So hopefully this works out pretty swell. So up here to the north, you can see the towers that we were able to locate through that website. And the idea here is to point this antenna here over to those towers I was talking about a little bit ago. So yeah, let's go ahead and finish the hookup. Want to make sure you get a nice secure connection there. Now this particular antenna came with a little rubber sleeve that you could put over this. However, typically you would do that before you attach the end here of the coaxial cable. But since this has already been done, it didn't fit on there. So all I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and just use some black electrical tape here, just to kind of secure the connection, as well as try and keep moisture from getting in there. Here's one last final look at the finished product. I think it looks too bad there. You may have to do a little adjusting there to kind of point it in the right direction to get the most out of your signal there. But yeah, I can just kind of play around with it a little bit. But overall, I think it looks pretty good. So guys, I hope this video has been helpful for any of you that are considering cutting the cord. It looks like my theory of using the old DirecTV infrastructure actually worked, which is fantastic. Now I no longer need my indoor antenna taped up on the wall or in a window, as well as if I get any more TVs in the house, I don't have to worry about purchasing another antenna. Overall, I'd say this project was a success. Thanks a lot for joining me. I hope that you have a terrific rest of your day. Thanks, guys.